Is everybody in? Are we recording?
We need just a minute, Jim, for the room to get loaded, please.
I like the way he phrases that.
For the room to get loaded?
Yeah.
The room to load up? The room to load. The people to get into the waiting room. I should be careful what I say. All right, Chair, whenever you're ready.
All right, let's get started. Gary, what's up?
All right, it's
roll.
Tuesday, September 29th, 2020. This is Issues. Roll call. Chair Bernard.
Here.
Commissioner Schrader.
Here.
Commissioner Savas.
Here.
Commissioner Fisher.
Here.
Commissioner Humberston.
Here.
Welcome, everyone. We have a long list of topics for you today. We'll start with wildfire updates. We have Nancy Bush, Director of Disaster Management and Incident Commander for the Single Emergency Operations Center. So Nancy, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, and good morning, everyone. So yes, for the Wildland Fires, we do have a few things going on and that we're working on. First, I want to let everyone know that our resource center is open in Moala now, and it is open from 9 a.m. to 6. We have several there today from the county that'll be working with our those that have been impacted, and throughout the week we're going to have more coming in, and maybe even rotating through. Because of COVID, we can't have everyone there at one time, so we've got that going. We continue to work on debris and damage assessment, and I think Gary's going to go over a couple of things with that a little bit later. But things have been moving very quickly with the state, and even last night, they had something due to them last night that they told us about yesterday afternoon, so things are moving quickly there, and we're getting that information in as fast as we can. We still have a few properties that we need to take a look at, and we're working with the new team, which is Team 3, that came in for the feds to get into those properties to take a look to see if we have any more damaged homes. So on the fires itself, on Riverside Fire, we have about 138,000 acres that is burned, and it is 37% contained. Beachy Creek here in Clackamas County is 46,323 acres burned, and it's about 58% contained. And now both Beachy Creek and Riverside Fires have the same federal team that they're working on, so that's been a little bit better for us for coordination as well. So just to mention the others real quickly, Dowdy Fire is 1,500 acres, a little over that. It is now 100% contained. Unger is just under 500 acres at 100% contained. Wilhoit is at 532 acres, and it is 94% contained, so it's getting close. And of course, Graves Creek has been at 100% at 46 acres for quite some time. We still have 122 without power here in Clackamas County, and PGE is going to be working on that, continues to work on that, and work with homeowners on that as well. Let's see, and we also are working with our population that has still been displaced, either because their home has been destroyed, or because they have not been able to go back into their homes yet, and working with them to make sure that we can get them placed. Also, I just want to let you know, I just got a message that we have a map that is now live, and we actually have now released all of the level 3s at this point, so everyone should be able to get back into their homes. That just went live a few minutes ago. So that is the big news of the day, and very good news. And that is all I have for the fire updates at this time.
All right,
Okay.
We're going to have 2 topics added here, Commissioners. One is a debris follow-up, and then second, the curfew. But outside those 2 topics, do you have any other questions for Nancy about the wildfire?
I don't have my screen up, so.
I'm not seeing any hands.
Okay.
Commissioner Humberston, go ahead.
Yes, I had a question from the Historical Society folks yesterday, and they were wondering what kind of planning is done in disaster planning for the preservation and safety of historic sites. I don't necessarily expect an answer immediately, today, but if we could get some information on that, I said that I would get back to them with an answer on what we do on that.
So I actually do have an answer. So
Okay.
as part of our FEMA application, and also as part of FEMA requirement, historic sites restoration is a part of that process. So we haven't got out to do everything yet, obviously, because, you know, things have, you know, we're really trying to make sure we have public safety is, of course, our top priority, but that is a part of the FEMA process. And we should be able to get some funding for that.
Do we do anything in our actual emergency operations center planning for emergencies that's centered around protecting those facilities from disaster? Or is it more, I mean, I guess I'm saying, are we proactive or reactive on that sort of thing?
We try to be both. We do try to be both. And it depends on the historic site, of course, too, and what that, you know, where it is and what it means, because there's a lot of historic sites that a lot of people aren't aware of, but we try to do both.
Very briefly, could you give me a kind of an example of what you would do in your planning process to protect a historic site?
So for example, if there's something that might be in the Wildland Fire zone, you know, in working through, you know, it depends on who owns it. Is it U.S. Forest Service? Does it belong to the county? But, you know, trying to make sure there's defensible space and that kind of stuff.
Okay, so the normal kinds of fire prevention things that you would do for a home or anything else.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right, but they are part of the FEMA restoration process. That's excellent to know. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Paul?
Yeah, Nancy, I caught a piece. I don't know what the news channel it was on TV over the weekend, but I know it was centered around some property owners in Marion County, but I assume maybe it applies to Clackamas County as well. And I may not get this right, so I'll just try to do the best I can from memory.
Mm-hmm.
In that the issue was not necessarily cabins, but cabins was part of that some of these had a agreement with the Forest Service, and that if the building was ever destroyed or vacated or whatnot, that they had a responsibility to restore the property, or restore the property to its original condition, clear the debris out, and basically would no longer have a right to the property. And I don't know on the FEMA side of things, or if we were to, you know, further consider bearing part of the brunt of the debris management cost, if cabins, or is it limited to domiciles, or is it including cabins and accessory buildings? I'm just kind of curious as to eligibility for FEMA, or getting caught into a project which goes back to restoring the land to its original conditions. That's a broad.
Yeah, and I can't, you know, as we work through these issues, I can't answer that question right now. I do know the Forest Service does have cabins that they have people living in for whatever reason and how, and I don't know what all those agreements look like, obviously. But yeah, I really can't answer that question, and we're still working through the debris issue, so I don't want to misspeak about that and what it will and will not include.
Yeah, the way it sounded like, it sounded pretty clear that people who had this agreement with the Forest Service had no other choice, the way it was couched. But my other factor, and you can get back to us later, but when it comes down to the point in time where we talk about, you know, whether or not we're going to act on our debris management and take a role in that, a stronger role, I just want to make sure we've got the financial impacts carefully considered.
Absolutely, and that is, you know, part of what we will be bringing to the commissioners, obviously, before any of those decisions are made. Cleanup is expensive, you know, and we're going to talk about in just a few minutes too about hazmat, which is a little bit different as well, and how do we, you know, make sure that it's safe. So, but like I said, I don't want to misspeak about all of that. I do know with the U.S. Forest Service, if they own the cabins and they have the agreement, that really is between them and who is living in that facility.
And one other question I had was talking to someone who had experienced a fire in a structure long before this, long before COVID, long before all of this. It had nothing to do with the forest fire or anything else. And when they did the cleanup, they had no obstacles or issues. They pulled right up the South Metro. They, unloaded the debris. It was handled the typical way that any other garbage and refuse and all that stuff was handled. So the question was posed to me over the weekend. It was kind of an astute question. Why is this being handled differently?
Well, because it's not just one property, it's many properties. Not to mention, it's also public property that we're having to clean up. And it's a very large amount. It's not like one home driving up. It's several properties and, several metric tons of debris. It's different. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Okay, any other questions not related to debris or curfew, which we're about to talk about? Not seeing any. Okay, let's start with debris. Nancy, who else would you like in the room for this?
Jeffrey Munns, if he can be brought in, please.
Okay. So commissioners, I did email you about this yesterday. Chair Bernard had to make a decision quickly to the governor's office, which he did yesterday. So this is just to let you know what he did and what we did. Again, you were emailed about this, but Nancy, can you and Jeff please give a high-level update, and then we'll answer the board's questions. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So Jeffrey, I'll start, and then you can fill in if you need to. So we had an opportunity from the state as well as the EPA, who is working with the state on hazmat materials, and it's household waste, hazmat materials from the fire, and to determine if we want to go with the state, who will pay the 25% for the hazmat removal for the homes, and working through those issues. And there's a lot around right of entry and those types of things, which I'll have Jeffrey Munns talk about. So, and we had to let them know Monday. We found out Friday, we had to let them know Monday if we were interested. So we did put the information together, and Chair Bernard, did take a look at it and said, yes, that we'll go ahead and send this in. And it is a tool in our toolbox. And so as we explore this and go through the process with the state as well as the EPA, if it's something that we're like, oh no, we're not interested in that, we can back out of it. But we did say we are interested in looking with and going with the state and other counties and having the EPA help us with the household waste hazmat. So Jeff, do you want to go ahead and fill in any blanks there?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the idea that the right of entry is a bit of an important piece of this, and it is because for us to do work on somebody else's property as part of the FEMA grant, we first have to get their permission, so we're not trespassing, and second, we need to have them agree to hold us harmless. That's one of the requirements of the federal regulations and the federal law in this situation. We also, if we're going to be down the road potentially doing any personal property debris removal, we also need to get their insurance information and their agreement that we can bill insurance, or that if they receive insurance proceeds that we're reimbursed. So all these things are part of this agreement, and it's an essential piece to us being able to do it, but it's also a big piece of our communication with the public. We want to make sure that it's clear, that they understand what our plans are, and that what we can do for them with this first step, the hazardous household waste removal. And so that'll be something that we'll be working on if we go forward with that part of the project, but it's kind of where we're at right now. I guess also working with the state on kind of some of these final details of our involvement in that at this stage.
Yeah, and there actually is a Q&A today, so that we'll be participating in that as well to get some of our questions answered. And Chair Bernard also sent in some questions too when we said yes, we were interested. So there's still a lot of questions we haven't had answered yet.
Paul?
So I don't have any issue. I support what the chair and staff did yesterday, so I don't have any problem with that. I am intrigued though that similar to the other thing we're exploring as far as debris management, where the county would pick up the 25%. In this case, for the hazardous waste, the state picks up this 25%. My question goes a little bit beyond that, which gives me concern on either or. Does that mean the state then takes full responsibility for cleanup of the site, or would that be incumbent upon either the owner or if the county got involved deeper? Because that part is far more costly, I'm afraid. to take full responsibility for the entire site.
So I think that is one of our questions.
Okay,
That is definitely one of our questions.
okay, thank you.
I don't see any other questions. So next issue.
Okay, very good. Next is curfew. Commissioners, part of your emergency declaration for the wildfires, you did enact a curfew in Clackamas County. And because now there are no level 3 evacuation zones anymore, the question is, do you want to retain the curfew language or do you want to strike it from your declaration?
Well, I'd like to strike it.
I would like to strike it.
I support that. So I move to strike the curfew language off the emergency ordinance.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we strike the curfew language off the emergency ordinance. Any further discussion? Christina, please poll us.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Humbertson?
Aye.
Commissioner Savis?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader? You're on mute, Commissioner Schrader. I saw the aye, but.
Aye.
Sorry. And Chair Bernard.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously.
How about I draft an addendum, a second one, and you guys can formally approve it at your business meeting on Thursday?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Does it, question, is it in effect immediately?
It can be.
Sure.
I so move.
Thursday.
Well, it would have to be on Thursday when you approve the addendum.
All right. So.
Oh, all right.
I think we should also message that that was also a suggestion and approved by the sheriff's office as well.
Of course.
Okay.
All right.
Very good. Next, please state.
Hey, Gary, I'm sorry, I didn't have time to raise my hand. I just want to make sure that we are clear that there is not an evacuation order right now, even though we are removing it on Thursday. The evacuation orders that were authorized by the sheriff's office are not enforced right now.
That's
Don't want any
true.
confusion out there.
That's not part of what we're talking about, Sonia. That is a map and it's live.
No,
Correct?
I mean curfew. There isn't a curfew in place right now. I'm sorry, I didn't mean evacuation orders. I misspoke. Thank you for clarifying that, Chair Bernard.
Yes, that is correct. The sheriff had said a few days ago, only level 3 evacuation areas will have the curfew in effect. And now that there are no level 3s, there is therefore no curfew in effect.
Right. Thank you, Gary. I appreciate that.
Okay, sticking on wildfires, but moving to the next item on your list, there is a recommended statement for the board to make addressing wildfires and thanking those in our community who supported each other. That draft was provided to you and it is online. If commissioners, you are interested in this, we would seek your approval, or if you would like to make any edits.
I'm fine with it.
Mm-hmm.
Gary, I missed that. So could someone just read that then for the record?
Sure, I will read it now. I'll read it, all right. Words cannot express our relief that no lives to date were lost during the historic wildfires that have ravaged our county in the past weeks. We realize that the safety and care of yourself, family, and neighbors during this time was a community effort. Thank you. Thank you for being quick to act, to follow evacuation orders, and for taking care of one another. Your actions demonstrates that we are all Clackamas strong. We are proud to serve you. In Clackamas County, we're urban, suburban, and rural. We live in the woods, rural areas, and small towns that are adjacent to densely populated urban areas. This makes us unique. These past few weeks, we have experienced the impacts of wildfires to our community. These massive infernos engulfed our forests, devastated our communities, smothered us in hazardous smoke, evacuated thousands, and destroyed homes. We are committed to working with our state and federal partners to address the root cause of these wildfires in order to protect our community and to honor our natural resources. It is incumbent upon all levels of government to examine the causes of these mega fires and implement long-term solutions that will reduce the threat of wildfires. Our top priority is protecting your safety and livelihood. We are supporting the firefighting efforts and making a path for your road to recovery. We want to work with you to strengthen our community and learn how we can better support you for the next time disaster strikes. Thank you for the opportunity to serve you.
Thank you.
Good. So I move we accept the letter. And
Oh, hey, Jim, I have my hand up.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm fine with this, except I think that the wording, you know, we have that these massive infernos engulfed our forests, devastated our community, smothered us in hazardous smoke. I think that smothered us in hazardous smoke is a little strong. I think we could say exposed us to hazardous smoke. It implies smothered is just a very dramatic word. And I know it felt incredibly difficult for many of us, including myself, but I was, you know, smothered is just too hard, too much, I think.
Fine with me.
Or the word engulfed.
Well, we already have engulfed in that sentence.
Okay.
The massive infernos engulfed our forests,
okay,
devastated our communities, and my suggestion is exposed us to hazardous smoke, evacuated thousands, and destroyed homes.
All right, let's not spend a whole lot of time on this. Yeah, I'm good with that change. Everybody else good? Just thumbs up?
Thumbs up.
I'm good.
Great.
Hey, I want to add something. Yesterday, I think one of the commanders of the effort to put out fires actually gave an exceptional explanation of why they had to pull out and a backup for a little bit to reorganize and hit the fire. So I'm going to tell you what it is. So it's like a nuclear bomb, and this was actually happening. The smoke went up into a funnel, and once it reaches a certain weight, it explodes back down and explodes out. And at the moment that was happening is when they got the 911 call, back out of the fire. And that's exactly why they backed out. Now, other people saw them in town and wondered why it was happening. And frankly, everyone should have left, but some didn't. And they blamed the fire department for backing out, not fighting the fire. But the truth was, when that occurs, and there was an example in California where they lost a bunch of, or Arizona, I think, where they lost 7 firefighters because that is exactly what happened. It gets up, it gets a lot of weight and shoots down and explodes out. And that's why they had to back away from the fire at the moment and reorganize and then hit it again. So I thought that was the best explanation I had heard. Anyway, just thought I'd let you know.
So do you have a name for that phenomenon?
They did. I don't remember it.
It's called get the heck out phenomena.
Yeah.
All right. Are there any other questions about wildfires? Otherwise, we'll move on to COVID.
I don't see any hands.
Okay, next is a coronavirus update. Nancy will provide that as well, please.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so here in Oregon, we have 32,994 positives, 547 deaths, and a little over 642,000 negatives. Clackamas County has 2,420 positives. We now have 61 deaths and 61,232 negatives. Multnomah County is at 7,204 positives, 138 deaths, 142,098 negatives. Washington County is at 4,540, positives, 60 deaths, and 91,723 negatives. There are 133 hospitalized statewide. 35 of those 133 are in IC beds, and 15 are on ventilators. There are 229 ICU beds available statewide and 814 ventilators available statewide. Here in Clackamas County, for total cases for the week of 9/21 through 9/27, we had 147 for the week. And unfortunately, that brings us over 30 for 100,000 because we're now at 35.2 per 100K. We have a total of 27 outbreaks in Clackamas County that we're working. 10 of those are in workplaces, 3 are in food and farm, 13 long-term care facilities or retirement facilities. We have 0 in daycare, 0 in schools, 0 in healthcare settings, and 1 in social and 0 in other. So that is what I have right now. We continue to work on messaging. We are really aware that people, I think, became a little desensitized because of everything that was going on with fire, so which I totally understand. And so we're working on some new messaging and making sure that our population understands that, you know, we still have COVID, we still have increased cases coming in the last couple of weeks. We've had increased cases. So trying to change our messaging just a little bit so we can catch the attention of our residents and the population. So those are some of the things that we're working on there, you know, as well as, of course, working on our CARES dollars, trying to help our businesses through some of our CARES dollars and moving forward with those issues and trying to make sure that those that are vulnerable have a place to go to be safe whenever they quarantine and isolate. And that is my report for today. And of course, Dr. President and Philip Mason Joyner will be here on Thursday.
Sonia and then Ken.
So the 10 workplace outbreaks, is there a theme with what types of workplaces? Are those on office spaces, or do we know any more about that?
I don't have that data here in front of me.
I'm just curious if there's, if there is a theme, if there needs to be additional messaging, because I still think that there's confusion out there in some workplaces as to what the correct guidance is, as far as when you need to wear a mask and.
Okay, I'm writing that down so Dr. President and Philip can talk about that on Thursday.
Ken.
Do you have information on what metrics Clackamas County is meeting of the 6 and also regionally?
So we are not, I'll have to pull it up here. So we're missing for the 6. Just a moment. Sorry.
Nothing's changed since last Thursday.
Yeah, we won't get anything until Wednesday night. We'll get the new ones, but we are missing for the 6.
Okay.
Okay.
And the region is missing, I believe, 2 of the 6.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if it had changed or not. Thank you very much.
No, we don't get that data until Wednesday evenings.
So Wednesday evening, the chairs will be meeting again to discuss how we move to stage 2, and we'll have the metrics by then. Yesterday's metrics looked pretty good. I mean, the count was lower in Clackamas County, Washington County, and Multnomah County. Kafori was really thrilled to see it at 21 in Multnomah County, but still, we're missing 4 of the 6. We're actually the worst of the 3. So we're going to be talking about it, and there is some discussion about a 1.5 phase, which might open up some businesses opportunities, but I didn't get the impression that the state or Kafori was real excited about it, because she went out to dinner in the Pearl District, and she said there were hundreds, well, at least 100 people on the street without masks, standing in lines, chatting, and it really worried her. She almost ran out of the Pearl District. But so anyway, we'll be talking about it on Wednesday night, and you guys will get an update. Paul?
Yeah, I just want to say, Jim, is that, you know, as far as that weekly numbers, that whole structure is probably too late, and I don't think there's probably going to be any refinement, but it's not really reflective. I mean, yeah, if we have 4 and other counties have 3, for this moment or snapshot in time, doesn't look so good, but our case count is still the lowest of the 4 counties. And I say 4 counties because I consider Marion County part of the matrix. And so I think yesterday was the first time I saw a number where Marion County's numbers, where I think we're 1 case below ours, was the first time ever.
Yeah, I don't know why Marion County gets a little extra credit versus us and Washington County, but for some reason they do. All right, any other questions on this or additional comments? Don't see any. Gary?
All right, quickly, so eviction moratorium, originally that was going to expire tomorrow, September 30th. Some commissioners were wondering if we should do our own moratorium extension at the county. However, Governor Brown yesterday did extend the statewide eviction moratorium until the end of this calendar year, December 31st. So just wanted to update you and the public. There's no need for you to take action because the governor has done that now.
Sonia?
Yeah, and I just want to really thank Gary for following up on that and putting the wheels in motion in case we needed to do our own eviction moratorium. I really appreciate your work on that, Gary. Fortunately, we don't have to, but thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you to our public and government affairs team. They've been working with the governor's office for months now to help advocate for this as well. With that, Commissioner Humberstone.
Just one question that I think I've put out before, and that is that sooner or later the eviction moratorium ends. There are going to be people that will not be able to pay the back rent. They will get evicted, and we are going to end up with potentially with more homeless people. So what planning is being done both at our level and the state level to address that issue? And I don't expect you to necessarily have an answer today, but I think we need to be looking at that question because that is a problem that is going to hit us after that moratorium, whenever that moratorium ends. And we're going to be the boots on the ground having to deal with it.
So, hey, Ken, I was out at our smoke-free shelter in Oak Grove, the Methodist church there, and they're already seeing the COVID homeless out in our faith community. So this is already happening, and it's really unfortunate. It's really important that all of us have our ears open and really listening to our community about this very important issue. I appreciate it.
Paul?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that the other thing we need to consider and factor is the impacts to those who receive the rents to pay their bills, their taxes, and everything else. So there could be tax collection impacts for some of these large property owners that have lots of rentals that maybe are not collecting their rent. I don't know any particulars about that. I don't know how many people are exercising that and not paying their rents at all. Or portions of, but there's, it's going to have an effect on everything. So we got to just realize that it's not just isolated to the people that are trying to stay in housing.
Yeah.
All right. Gary?
So thank you for that. Yes, of course, commissioners, this is one of your priorities before COVID was addressing housing, affordable housing, homelessness, houselessness. So yes, your staff is working on this. I know the EOC, as far as the long-term recovery, is working on this, and we will engage you with this topic over the next few weeks and months. Thank you. That is up for coronavirus COVID updates. Any other questions for Nancy before we say farewell for now? Okay, not seeing any. Thank you, Nancy, very much.
Thank you.
Moving on, next, grant delegation authority. If Elizabeth Comfort and Andrew Naylor can please come into the room, and Stephen is updated on this as well. This is a proposal for you commissioners to consider, and I will let whoever wants to start kick this off, please.
Good morning, commissioners. This is a request to address a problem that has come up not terribly often, but enough that we feel we should clarify, where a grant, either application or document, has to be signed in an extremely abbreviated time frame. Typically, all grants are signed by this board, but we have had those sort of odd scenarios come up. And so the solution that Finance and Council's office is proposing is to delegate grant signing authority to the county administrator, essentially in the same amounts that already exist for regular contracts. So that would be $150,000 with an amendment authority up to another $150,000, which is sort of rare because grants typically don't get amended in a rush scenario. So this would be just another means of getting these grant applications or agreements in place to receive the funds without necessarily going through the longer process should that situation arise again in the future. So that is the general scenario and the request. And we have several folks from finance who are in the waiting room who can maybe describe some of the specific situations that have come up that sort of are the impetus for this request.
I don't have any questions. Ken?
Just one question. So this is so that the general manager can sign a grant request where we are receiving money. That's my first question, correct?
Correct.
I at a loss to determine why that would be an issue unless there is matching funds that we have to consider as a board from our budget. So can you explain to me why he shouldn't be able to sign a grant for $500,000 as long as there's no matching funds involved?
I can't. I'm not sure why the grant signing authority has been reserved for this board. That's a decision entirely from this board at some point in time. I guess it was made not to delegate that signing authority. I don't know if it was sort of an oversight rationale or not, but that's just the current system we have in place. That is a good question or comment about the matching funds. A lot of grants do have matching funds, so that might be an important distinction to consider if you want to delegate this authority to require grants that have matching funds to always go to this board. Elizabeth, do you know if any of these sort of emergency scenarios have ever been matching fund grants?
I'm not sure if we could bring in Krista Wolf, maybe she could help us with a history.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioners, I do want to say I'm not asking for this. I'm not the wheels behind this, but rather if this is something that you feel would be efficient and that you would support, that's why. But it's your call, and if you were to support this, we'd bring it forward formally. This is just to get your temperature if you want to go forward or not. Thank you.
Good morning, commissioners. I actually would say that Matt Westbrook would be our real expert. I know he's also in the waiting room and he can speak more eloquently to the particular situation that arose recently. But to answer the question, yes, most of our grants do have small components of matching funds. They're often not huge components of the budget, otherwise it wouldn't be cost effective for the county, of course, to pursue these funding obligations. But as you're well aware, some of our larger departments like H3S often do have to use some of their general fund dollars that they receive towards these grants to provide those matching obligations. So Matt, would you like to expand on that a little bit once we get you in here?
Morning, commissioners. We developed the grant signing authority in conjunction with Laurel Butman when she was still here. And it was her interpretation that all grants received by the county needed to go to the BCC on their consent agenda according to her interpretation of budget law. Since then, we've been working with council to determine if that is in fact the case. We don't necessarily interpret it that way any longer. And we don't see any practical reason for why grants that have been awarded to the county for up to $150,000 could not be signed by Gary. It's not just an emergency declaration I was hoping that we could achieve today. It's just to align it with the LCRB rules in general. There doesn't seem to be a practical effect unless, of course, you do want to engage if there are matching funds and you'd like to review the county's commitment on those awards. I'd like to remind you that you will have already seen, potentially depending on the amount of the grant application, the life cycle process forms, which is what we have designed for county departments to ask for permission to apply for grants in the first place. So it will be at that point you will have seen whether matching funds will have been required on any of these grants to begin with.
Good point.
It just was an interesting situation as far as I was concerned, and my only interest is if if a grant is going to require a match, that it might have a real impact on our general fund. I think the board needs to be aware of that. But other than that, I don't have a problem with it at all. I just was sort of curious. Thank you very much for your input.
I think that makes sense to me.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
One more thing. We may want to alter the life cycle process form as well then, because Gary currently has signing authority to approve applications up to $150,000, even for those applications that include match. So if you'd like to catch it on the upfront level, maybe we should addend that form to require it to go to the board if there is match involved.
And I never sign those unless the department proves to me it's already in their budget to cover the matching amount. I do not allow them if they need extra money to cover the match. So that's something I'm doing already.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
Paul and Sonia.
Well, Gary, as far as taking our temperature, if this indeed is going to come back in a work session, I want to make sure that we kind of cover something that I've been trying to bring attention to since I became a commissioner for almost 10 years ago. And that is concern, and I've heard this from our own staff, that some of these grants don't really make sense or pencil out sometimes. And that's, not recent, but that's past. And so having some review of, is this worth pursuing? Are the grants effective? Do we accomplish what the grants intended to do? Are there changes to the grants after approval that were not part of the application that we ought to be aware of? So, and I know that that's a huge amount of revenue that the county receives, and it's a very complex conversation and affects a number of departments. But overall, if we do have that work session, I would like to know how much of that review and our managing for results is actually covering the efficiencies of whether or not we should be applying for grants, certain grants, not grants in general, but certain grants, if it doesn't really pencil out. If it costs more to implement the grant than we would otherwise, then that's an area of concern, for example.
All right, Sonia.
Yes, I'm okay bringing this forward to a work session, but some things that I want us to be mindful of, and it piggybacks onto what Paul was saying, is that there's transaction costs to getting grants, and it may not pencil, and it could, we have to really keep our finger on the pulse of the growth of government, and without any oversight, even if they're $150,000 grants, it concerns me a bit. And the other thing that concerns me is, and I'm sure we all read the consent agenda, that is a great communication tool for us as commissioners to know what's happening when we do receive grants and we review those and we have a sense of what we're doing as a county, and that's our check to make sure that it's aligning with Performance Clackamas and our strategic initiatives. If that is all taken away from our review and our administrators just able to sign off on all these grants, we won't really have our finger on the pulse of what we're doing in those smaller grants. And $150,000, it's not chump change. It's a lot of money. So those are all of my concerns and red flags. We need to watch the growth of government, and it needs to make sense for what our priorities are as the elected body. And I don't know if we get rid of our review of that on the consent agenda, if that furthers our priorities.
All right, any other comments? Yes, Andrew.
To address Commissioner Fisher's concern, we can certainly have a grant delegation that still requires board ratification. So it could, or some other step. There's lots of ways to fashion it to address that concern so it doesn't disappear from the consent agenda entirely. It could be, initial signing, board approves it after the fact, something like that, or even just a requirement that the administrator provide a written update of all grants signed under this authority. It doesn't need to be necessarily as formal as a ratification, but there are ways we can craft it to address that concern.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I just know that the reporting requirements on some grants make it not worth us receiving the money because of the transaction cost. So having just not having some oversight, I think, is important.
All right. So bring it to a business meeting, Paul.
Yeah, I just want to just restate what I was saying before, as far if any of these grants have any changes made to them, if they upped our contribution or they've cut their portion of what they're going to contribute, any changes from the original proposal or application of what the grant was going to deliver ought to not be eligible for that. It ought to go back to review and go through our processes. And frankly, if there is any exercise like that, where there's, I won't say a circumvention, but an exception, that all those are looked at by our internal auditor as well.
So I'm not hearing consensus to go forward on this, and I don't want to waste staff time to have a work session if you've kind of clearly stated how you feel about this. Again, this is no purposeful attempt to bypass the board. It's an efficiency request only. And the example that just happened last week, commissioners, on the HUD grant for H3S, the deadline changed at a moment's notice, and it had to be approved or we couldn't go forward to apply. So I approved it, not under the emergency declaration, but because there was no time to go before you. So if I did not, actually, I did that anyway, but if I did not have the authority to do that, that just means the county could not have applied for the grant, which is fine, but that's the kind of the thing we're trying to solve here. So I'm not saying it's okay to have this discussion, but if you're not comfortable, it can still all go before you. You can always hold an emergency board meeting. That's another solution too. So I want to be respectful of staff time. If there's not interest in going forward, let's just end it now and keep it the way we've done it.
I'm interested in going forward. Ken and Paul?
Yeah, I'm interested in going forward. I think that it was just some tweaks that and concerns that the board just wanted to make sure, or myself included, are taken into consideration. But I'm definitely interested in going forward.
Paul and Sonia?
Yeah, I'm to make it perfectly clear, I'm interested in having the work session, but I don't want it. I think the broader discussion we discussed today needs to cover all of those points we've made, and I just want to make sure that we're working efficiently all the way through. And if it applies to applying for a grant as well, not only approving it but applying for it, and maybe I misunderstood on the front end what this was all about, but you know, again, I just got concerned. I mean, I don't know what review the HUD grant was. I'm not going to pick on that one. I'm not suggesting that it was not a proper or efficient, but if it didn't go through the normal course of being analyzed for efficiencies, then that gives me pause.
Sonia?
I guess I'm a little unclear on the problem we're trying to solve. If Gary has the authority, if in an emergency situation, to sign a grant, then it seems like we have what we need in place. I don't want staff to do extra work either. If it's not necessary for efficiency's sake, I don't see, I guess I just need more help here to make an informed input. But if everybody wants to review this, I think a policy session is fine. We have a duty to be efficient. At the same time, we have a duty for oversight. So it always helps me also is when we have these important issues is to just have a little summary in writing so that I can look at it and review it while we're talking, because that helps to know what we're being asked to make it informed input.
Well, it's always a can of worms.
All right, so
work session.
Well, I'm hearing the request though to basically review our entire grant process, and that's going to take hours of research, and that's not what the request is today, and it's not one of the 5 priorities you've asked for in the next 3 months. So I just want to clarify what you're asking for. Again, respectfully, I say let's just hold it. Let's keep it status quo for now, because I'm hearing 2 different things you're asking for. A full review of our entire grant process versus signing authority. So Andrew or Elizabeth, you want to jump in here and clarify what you need or what you'd like to do? with the board?
Yeah, I'm hearing two different concerns. I'm hearing the discussion about the grant program as a whole versus what we're talking about here today, which is just about the signing. This is just signing authority, who can put their signature on the documents. So maybe it would be helpful if we actually put together a draft of what this order would look like, for this board to review what the signing authority proposal would look like on paper. That might address some concerns. And then perhaps I can speak with Elizabeth and the grants folks to maybe address some of the larger concerns about grant analysis in general, and think of a way to bring that issue before the board as well.
So just a point of order here, that this has been pretty consistent through the years of how we've managed things. So I don't have any angst over it, but I've been here a while, and perhaps then we just need to review it so some of the newer commissioners can, feel more comfortable with it. But this is nothing out of the ordinary or new with how we've managed our grants at this point. And by and large, it has increased efficiency, and I have always felt in the loop. Because of all the information and paperwork we get anyway. So, and we have had very fine administrators that we can trust to manage things of this sort, so.
Right.
I agree 100%, Martha. I think we should just move forward on this unless there's a major change in we already reviewed the grant. We're asked, can they apply for the grant, right? And we authorize that, and then they apply for the grant, and we're just authorizing a signature of Gary to sign the grant. Unless it changes, it should be just a simple matter of Gary letting us know he signed the grant.
All right, why don't we have a work session to have a quick grants 101 to remind everyone how the process currently works. And I will put in writing this proposal of delegation of authority, and then you can discuss it there. How about that?
Sure.
I think a work session is warranted, as I said. Maybe it needs to be tweaked. Again, it seems to have worked pretty consistently. We've never had a problem, but I don't think it's a bad idea to have that conversation so everybody gets comfortable and we're in the same space with it. So.
All right.
Okay. Thank you all very much.
All right, thank you.
So we'll be back with you on this. All right, let's move forward. County forest land wildfire damage update. We have Laura Zentner and Andrew Dopemeyer to give you a brief update, and then if needed, we'll have a policy session here as well. All right, Laura, do you want to start, or is Andrew?
Yeah, I can go ahead and start. Andrew, are you on there? Just want to make sure.
I'm there, but how do you get the picture on there so it sees me?
At the bottom of your screen,
Tap on it.
there's a button that says
Share screen?
no, not yet. Stop
Okay.
video.
The camera, just tap on the camera.
You can see that I'm a newbie on this kind of stuff. The camera says start video, so is that it?
Yes, and that should bring your picture up.
Choose, okay. That didn't work.
Let's go forward, please.
Okay. Yeah. So good morning, Chair Bernard, Commissioners, Administrator Schmidt. As mentioned, my name is Laura Zentner, Director of BCS, and with me is Andrew Dopemeyer, our County Forester. As mentioned in an email last week, our County Forest and staff have been able to assess the wildfire impacts to our 3,200 acres of forest land, and Andrew is here today to provide an update on some of those details. Before I turn it over to Andrew, though, I just want to make a couple quick points. Unfortunately, we have over 450 acres of our Clackamas County forest land. That's roughly 13% of the 3,200 acres burned in the recent wildfires. We had impacts to 4 of our tracks. And now that the fires have passed through our forest lands, time is going to be of the essence for us to salvage as much burned timber as possible. We could lose more than 50% of our salvageable volume in the next 6 months if we don't move quickly to harvest and salvage the burned logs. And finally, we anticipate complications in the log market as larger landowners bring their salvage logs to market. So again, I want to just emphasize that need for us to move quickly on this to salvage our damaged timber. So with that quick intro, I'm going to turn it over to Andrew, and he is going to take you through a PowerPoint and provide some details. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to show this PowerPoint presentation. So can you see this yet? How do you get this? Everybody can see it. Everybody can see it? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start it. It's just basically, it just shows you what the damage is on our forest altogether. This is just a view on the Riverside fire. You can see where there's a mosaic of burns. Black, of course, is everything's burned. The brown is kind of dried and pretty hot underneath, and the green it kind of crawled under or just missed it altogether. So here we go. So anyways, we had 5 parcels that were hit by the fire. 4 were in the Riverside. 1 was in the Beachy fire. The first parcel we have is Clackamas Quarry. It's about 18 acres, just east of Clackamas, just above the reservoir there on Highway 224. The second one is Hoops, a 20-acre parcel, and that one is kind of isolated just east and south of Escacada. The third one is Hillock Burn, which is about a 195-acre parcel, and that is also south and east of Escacada. The fourth is Elwood, which is just south of Escacada by Colton, and that's about 30 or 80 acres. And then the last one is all Family Camp, where we were down south right there. Is we just logged that this winter, and that's 160 acres that we had to go through. So when the slide's done, it should be done here in a couple seconds. We will go over each parcel and then the values that we lost in the stands. You can see it's just a variable amount of burning. Some places it burned really hot and clean. Other places it's just a dirty burn, which means basically they kind of dried everything up but didn't really burn things. These are some of our plantations that you can see where they lost completely everything, our investment. We even got some baked apples in the whole program going through there. That's the mosaic. You can see where it dried out. Some of the trees was burned underneath, but that whole thing burned underneath there, even if the trees were green. And one of the issues we comment on our hillock property is like those cedars, this hemlock is growing around. Even though the tree didn't burn up like that, the hemlock and the cedar can't take any heat on their base and they die pretty much all the way. Okay. So getting to the losses, first the Clackamas Quarry, basically we lost everything there. There was only about 3 acres that had some timber on it. The rest was plantation. So our total loss of timber there is about 17,822. And to reforest the whole thing, 1 acre is not reforested because there's no rock quarry. They're getting anything to plant there and grow there. I lost my screen there on the other slides. Do you have that? Oh, you got it on your. I gave it to you. Do you guys have that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just read it off then, so I don't have to have a look at the slide. So the reforested, there was $7,000, $7,600 to reforest that one. Hoops is a 20-acre piece. It basically burned underneath the whole thing. It dried out a couple spots, and hemlock, like I said, doesn't take fire very well, and I would expect those trees to be dead by the end of the summer. We lost about 20%, or let's see, about 25% of that will probably die. But it's probably not economical for us to go in and harvest or salvage those trees. They are an older plantation, 41 years, but they are merchantable to harvest. And so just to reforest those little spots there, about $2,000. The hillock burns are a big one that has most of the damage. It's 195 acres. We lost which is kind of interesting, you see where those really toasted areas were. That was the top of the ridge, and then when it got over the top of the ridge, it just kind of skipped the section. It went right over our plantation, which is pretty nice, and it only had little tiny spot fires in it, so we didn't really lose a whole lot of the plantation, maybe 20% of it. We'll just go in there and interplant that. And the stream buffer, we lost a little bit of the stream buffer, but we have no value because we wouldn't be able to salvage it anyways because it's in the buffer. And then the rest of it, we lost quite a bit of acres, 100% loss. And then there's 33 acres where it just kind of skipped around, which you'll probably just leave go and not do anything about that again. So the total value of the timber and the plantations is $329,000 that we lost. But I think we can, if we salvage that, which we're working at right now, we can probably recover about $321,000 from that. The fourth one is Elwood. Pretty much toasted the whole thing, and we're gonna probably lose about $54,000 in value there. And then of course we have to add on another $28,000 to replant that. We will do that this winter. And then the last one's family camp. 52 acres. We got a plus out of the whole deal. We had all these piles we had from logging, and it cleaned up pretty nice. You can see there wasn't anything left on the ground, so the tree planters aren't going to have any problem planting that one. So there's always a silver lining in this cloud. And then there's basically 14 acres where it came across the plantation, and the fire just kind of dried out on the other side of the road, and we're going to probably have to salvage that along the road. And then again, on the small plantation up at top, we're going to have to plant that back. So we lost about $107,000 in merchantable value and plantations and trees, and it cost about $15,000, $16,000 to reforest. So in grand total, we lost $526,687, and it's going to cost us another $117,000 to reforest it in the next 2 years. So that's kind of in a nutshell. If you guys have any questions.
Martha and then Ken.
Yeah, thanks for that. I was wondering then, with what we've lost, we will go in and do cleanup and get the slag out. Is that part of the process?
Yeah, the goal is to go ahead and salvage log whatever we can. We're going to get the big piece. I'm going to try to get a contractor. That's why I was out with him yesterday looking at it. And as Laura was talking about, we're trying to get a contractor lined up as quick as possible, because we're competing with everybody else that's trying to get the wood out. There's a lot of wood out there, and it's flood the mills, and the contractors are going to be really slim to get. We're talking with the contractor that just did our last job, which did an awesome job, saved us a lot of money, did an excellent job cleaning up. And so I'm trying to get him lined up. He's already, after 2 weeks ago when I talked to him, he said, yeah, I'll be able to help you out. And then since that time, we haven't locked him up. He's already gotten two of his other prime contractors he does work for, has already lost 3,000 acres that he's going to be working on. So we're still trying to work at getting him permanently, get him in there, maybe until February or March before he gets in there, but I like to still get him locked in before the summer comes. Those trees that are black where everything burned completely, they won't last through the summer, probably halfway through the summer, and they'll start checking and we lose value there and won't be able to return it. The stuff that underburned and killed, like the hemlocks where they're still green on top, they may make it to the end of the summer, but
they're going to be gone.
Yeah, the bigger trees will make it through a whole year. The butt bog will make it through. These aren't big trees. There are some, but there's not that many, so it's not going to last through the summer very well. So time is of essence. We're trying to get it as quick as possible, get in there and salvage. Me and my crew will take care of the smaller, little, like the 3-acre piece and the 14-acre piece. We can probably do that on our own, just high grade it and take the best stuff out and get some value back out of it, and then just hire a self-loader to come in and take the logs out themselves.
I appreciate that. And then the replanting will happen, what, next spring?
No, I've already reserved through our Willamette Tree Industry 75,000 trees. Some of it was already reserved for us for our 52-acre plantation we harvested, and then the rest we'll finish doing family camp. Elwood, we'll plant that one all, and Clackamas Quarry, and we'll get those all taken care of. The only one we won't plant right away would be Hoops is not going to be planted, and then the Hillock Burn, we'll do that all after we log, so that'll be done the following year. So
okay.
We have enough trees reserved. We got ahead of the game before everybody else starts wanting trees to replant, and we reserved those trees to get that.
And I just want to say, I'm going to have to apologize, colleagues. I have to be in Malala at noon. And in order for because they're opening up the resource center there. And I think I'm taking your place, Jim, because you're more critical than I am for the meetings, I think. So I am going to have to take off right now. But I also wanted to thank you and say it would be great if we could, Ken, I don't know if you'd want to, the rest of our colleagues, if you want to go, I'd like to see the areas. If it's safe to get a personal look at it. Can we take a tour of the area? And then can we kind of show up when planting happens just to get I know you may not want us in the way.
You won't be in the way. There's plenty of areas there where they'll be running around, and I'd be glad to take anybody out who wants to go out in the woods and take a look at this stuff. The lock's a good one to go through, and you can go right through the middle of it and see a whole different kind of how it's burned and where it's burned and why I'm doing what I'm doing, and go through there and do that.
Good. Yeah. Maybe, do I get a few points for at least being an entomologist at one point?
Of course you do. I'm sure the bugs are gone, and there are going to be a lot more bugs in there this spring when they fly, and all the beetles are going to kill and take care of the trees that are dying.
Yep.
All right, thanks, Martha.
Okay, I have to go, folks. So
yep.
I will see you. Okay, I'll be back at 1:30.
Ken.
Hopefully.
Okay, Ken. Salvage.
I just have 3 quick questions. First question is, do you need any action from the board?
No, not at this time. We just are looking for your support to move everything as quickly as we can as far as getting in there to harvest the burn.
Certainly no problem on my part. I know that we harvest about 1.8% a year of our holdings. Because you're going to be doing salvage, does that mean, will you still do 1.8% of harvest next year in our holdings that are not burnt, or will you be skipping any years?
We haven't actually talked about that yet. The timber that we lost still wasn't going to be harvested in about 20 years, 15 to 20 years. So it's out there a ways, and then that's up to Laura and Sarah how they want to do that. If they want to hold off or start lowering the amount of cut and changing it from 1.8 to maybe 1% or something, that's up to them to see what they want to do.
Okay.
We'll have a discussion about it.
Okay. And then my last question was simply, or not really a question, but encourage the companies that are out there doing this to hire folks locally from, especially from Estacada and Malala. We got a lot of people that need work right now. You know, they've lost jobs, et cetera. And if we can keep the hiring as local as possible, I'd certainly appreciate it. And I suspect they would too. Thank you very much.
All right. I don't see any other questions. So you got authorization to move forward as fast as you can. Save the timber.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you, Laura. I'm going to move ahead for 2 topics that are time sensitive, and I'll hopefully come back to you on economic development shortly. But we'll move ahead to the Shady Dell Water Control District dissolution. Please bring Jeff Munns in the room. You did have a document that was emailed to you, Commissioner, but there's an action you need to take, and Jeff will fill you in on what that is as soon as he's here. There he is. Jeff, please go ahead on the Shady Dell Water Control District.
Yes, thank you, Gary. We recently received notice from the Secretary of State's office that the Shady Dell Water Control District hasn't filed its budget and audit reports the last 3 years. We reached out to their attorney and the last remaining board member that we could find, and they essentially are defunct. And so this board has a duty to initiate dissolution proceedings. As part of that, it will either end up with the assets and I guess obligations of the district being taken care of in that process, and any excess would be turned over to the county general fund. If there's another option, which is if we find another special district, a water control district or that type that would take over these operations, then we would encourage that district to annex the Shady Dell Water District and take over those operations. There is one district adjacent to it called the Malala River Improvement District. Been trying to reach out to them and haven't heard back to see if they'd be interested, but otherwise what I'm asking the board to do at this time is just simply direct county staff, which would be me in this case, to initiate the dissolution proceedings, which really amounts to putting together the financial report of the state of the Shady Dell Water District as we can discover it at this point. And we're obligated to turn that in to you 60 days after getting notice from the Secretary of State. So basically early November, we'll have a follow-up meeting, at which point we'll schedule a hearing to discuss the options and the future of the Shady Dell Water District at that time.
So,
and otherwise, just questions.
We're good for you to initiate. I don't see any questions. Initiate procedures.
Do you need a motion?
Okay.
Yes, please.
Do you need a motion?
Make the motion. Sure.
Move to approve.
Make the motion.
Second.
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve initiating action to dissolve the Shady Dell Water District. Any further discussion? Christina, please poll us. Or is she gone?
I'm Christina right now.
Oh, she's there.
Okay.
Oh.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Humberston?
Aye.
Chair Bernard?
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Next item. Thank you,
So
Jeff.
come back to it a business
you.
meeting with the formal documents on this. Thank you. All right, next, commissioners, there's a support letter that the Metro Regional Government is asking you to sign on. It is to the U.S. Economic Development Administration. It is for a CARES Act grant to support tourism in the Tri-County area. In particular, the funds would go to the Metropolitan Exposition Recreation Commission, which is a committee of Metro. And so the Metro is asking if the 3 county chairs would sign this letter. You have a draft in your packet. The draft is online. We've checked with our Tourism Development Council and Samara Phelps. They are supportive of this. It does support us locally as well as the 3 counties in the Portland region. So would you approve Chair Bernard signing this letter on behalf of the board?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Well, that was almost the vote there. So it's moved and seconded to approve applying for the for me to sign the letter. So any further discussion? Christina, you're back. Please poll us.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Humberston?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
And Chair Bernard?
Aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Great. We'll bring back in now Laura Zentner and Sarah Ekman for an economic development update for the county. This is a periodic update that you've asked for. So just high level of what's going on with our fantastic economic development team. So Laura, please go ahead.
So just real quick, good morning again. We're here today to provide an update on our economic development activities that have been happening over the past several months. If you recall, BCS and our economic development team have committed to providing a monthly 15-minute update to the BCC on our activities. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah, and she has a lot of to go through with you. So thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners and Administrator Schmidt. I do have quite a long list of updates for you, so I'm going to cruise through them quickly, and do want to acknowledge that Cindy Moore and John Lagarza with Economic Development are in the audience and following along with us as we go. So here are some updates. As you know, since March, our efforts have been not entirely devoted to COVID-related support, but definitely predominantly devoted to that. And it has taken quite a bit of our time and pivoted it to focus on that. So staff have been assigned an Emergency Operations Center under the Business Services section in Operations, which recently changed to have us aligned under the Liaison section. And as part of that work, we've developed a small business support package that you've had updates on periodically. To give you some high-level summary on that, part of that has been personal protective equipment that the EOC has inventoried in a warehouse and made available to businesses. We have staff monitoring our 4Biz phone and email. We've partnered with Technology Services for the Who's Open app, which continues to be used. We also have facilitated distribution of grants to small businesses in the county, and currently have distributed $420,000, which is a mixture of our lottery dollars, state matching funds, and dollars that were given to MISO, which is Micro Enterprise Services of Oregon, to distribute within our county. We've recently received approval for an additional $155,000, which is additional state matching dollars, which comes from Business Oregon. And that funding is going to allow applicants who have benefited from the payroll protection and the EIDL loans to apply. However, there's a nuance there in that we have to reduce out any awards they would have received from any award we would give them from the county level. So we'll be looking at that, and we do intend to go back to the list of applicants that we had for the first round, as we were oversubscribed, and we will be able to prioritize some awards to the folks that were eligible that we just didn't have funding for. Micro Enterprise Services of Oregon, or MISO, has established a location in the county, which is really exciting. And they've held an open house and have more than a couple of dozen businesses already on board to help them with their suite of services, which is quite extensive. They set up in Umpqua Bank, which is close to the town center on 82nd, and are there a couple of days a week and have staff directly involved in supporting businesses within our county. So we're really excited, and they've been an outstanding partner. We're also working with Clackamas Community College to develop a scholarship program, which is under review. Our agreement with them is under review with council, and we'll be going forward with that too. And the funding we're providing is going to help students get over the final hurdle that's keeping them from graduating. So it's some flexible funding that can do things like buy a first set of tools for somebody completing a trade program, or perhaps providing childcare to finish out their last term. So it's some really unique funding that we've partnered with, and this college has been an outstanding partner in helping make that happen. One of the newer things in terms of COVID support that we're doing is working with Nancy Bush with Disaster Management and the Emergency Operations Center on a new package. We're looking at probably around 1.5 million that will put some additional grants into the hands of our businesses in the community, as well as increase this technical assistance component that we have and have established. So we're looking at versatile ways to do that as well. I know I told you there's a lot of things here. Let me see what is next on the list. Another piece of that we're really excited about is something that we've seen done in Washington County, and that is business recovery centers. And so we're going to be looking at establishing those in the county. We've met already once with some staff from Washington County and are looking at how we could facilitate that here. So if we see that when it's successful as being 4 locations throughout the county that would be strategically and geographically placed. We would be leveraging some partnerships that we have with partners who would be able to facilitate these business recovery centers. We would market it to historically disadvantaged business owners, and then provide a wide variety of services such as legal assistance, accounting assistance, childcare assistance, and perhaps the personal protective equipment piece could be run through there, although that has yet to be discussed. So this 1.5 million is definitely under development, and we will be coming to you to update you as we get some of the final details fleshed out. And then we are working with disaster management and the EOC on recovery planning, and the Economic Development Commission did submit a letter of support for that effort, and we'll be involved in that going forward. There's, of course, a lot of overlap right now in disasters because of everything that's going on. So we are involved in supporting the business community impacted by wildfire, and we will be reviewing all of the incoming damage reports from our business community. So we're just in the process of setting that up now and looking for what resources we might be able to bring to bear to assist them. And one of the roles and functions we will serve in is making connections with key stakeholders within the county who have services that can help a business, such as perhaps the Clackamas Workforce Partnership, the Small Business Development Center, and places like that. So it's kind of our disaster-related update. And then we have a lot of other things going on as well, topics that you're familiar with. We have quite a lot of business development efforts going on right now. We have some recent enterprise zone approvals that have happened. As soon as we can share more on that, we will. We have some confidentiality requirements around business names right now, but we'll be sharing that with you. And then in just the last 2 weeks, we've had 5 new business retention and expansion contacts come in. So it's exciting for us to see that that's starting to pick up again. We have an Estacada business, Sandy, and 3 in the Milwaukee area. There's been a little bit of update in the terms of the wood product industry updates there, although some of those contacts have kind of stepped into, I think, a wait period as they've obtained information from county staff. We have a company outside of Estacada as well as Oregon City where we've met with them. They've been briefed on what requirements would be needed by them, and they're taking the ball into their court. And then we have a pellet manufacturer that is in due diligence right now. So quite a bit going on there. We're working in the CLT arena to extend some of our grant awards and agreements with various folks. So we're working with the U.S. Forest Service to extend the Wood Innovations Grant to allow us to continue to finish out the CLT design project for the proposed courthouse. And a lot of that work is done. However, the students under Julie Schrein with the University of Oregon School of Architecture had a plan in place to present that at some conferences and do that kind of work. And so they've asked for an extension to allow them to have more opportunity to do that since COVID hasn't allowed them to travel. So we're working with them on that, both with the Forest Service and with the University of Oregon. And then as you just heard from Andrew, we're working with County Forestry on salvage harvest, working in that. We do know that the ribbon cutting for solder timber is still on delay with COVID travel restrictions for the owner and all of that. So we're just sitting tight in that arena. And then we are connecting with the Forest Service about wildfire impacts to their lands and other relationship building there. The Land Bank Authority, we received an extension on the state dollars there. So we were able to delay the project start until January of 2022 with a completion date of January of 2024. So we were very excited to do that because we want to see this project go forward, but we're limited in our capacity to be able to move it at this time. And then we are working on your MFR goals in the areas of commercial and industrial lands and workforce. Our global trade strategy has been paused due to all of this other stuff. So we hope to be able to get back to that in the coming year. And we also, as we've talked with you on brief occasions, we'll be conducting some strategic planning that we'll definitely want your involvement in and be hopefully bringing to you, I would say in the next couple of quarters. We need to get a contractor on board and facilitate that kickoff process, but we'll be looking at that to help us better focus where we're putting our limited resources when it comes to economic development. As you know, too, TS has submitted a broadband grant application, which is a great opportunity that we're tracking with. Cindy Moore in Economic Development is on the conference planning committee for Oregon Economic Development Association, and we wanted to make you aware that their conference is happening in the week of October 26th. They're looking at a potential session on recovery planning, and there is a potential federal and state delegation panel there. So we wanted to bring that to your attention too. We are exploring a meeting with Oregon Institute of Technology to discuss some long-range planning for the area, and Commissioner Schrader has been involved in those conversations. And then we'll also be working with you on site visits. We know there's interest in getting out into some of the businesses that we're working with, and so we'll be looking at how to schedule those with you as we go forward. And lastly, we do have an October policy session with you with Clackamas Workforce Partnership to present their budget. So we thought we would bring that to your attention just since it's part of what we're doing in our work with you. That's my very long-winded update. So I'd like to open it up for questions.
Thank you, Paul.
Well, thanks for the detailed update. Have we worked with Happy Valley? Are we engaged with Happy Valley right now as far as looking at our employment land inventory out in East County?
Christina, could you bring in John LaGarza, please? John would be the best for the update on that. I know we have been in communication with Happy Valley, but he'll be able to give you the latest details.
Yeah, the reason I state this is because it's, you know, being partially in the EDC meeting and listening to folks, it should be noted that as I heard, Sarah, I think you were there, I believe I heard that Washington County Commission at least deployed at least $10 million to businesses for their business recovery centers and economic incentives to keep some of these businesses alive. They too are striving to get into phase 2, but you know, on behalf of businesses, of course, but most especially the employees, right? And some of which are Clackamas County employees that work in other counties and so on. So, and as this ties into COVID, as this ties into transit, it ties into all of our needs. And I just want to say that since I've been a commissioner, our population has grown about 75,000 people. It was about 350, I believe, when I started. And I don't think we've grown a proportional amount of jobs for that 75,000. And we're on a trend, I think, which is going to put us farther behind. And as the metro region explores tolling and all these options and the way that transportation funding and transit funding is, it's all on employee taxes or employer taxes. And if the employers are in other counties and we're getting a smaller share of that because we are not building our employment base, my concern is that we're going to see less transit dollars when we need transit more than anyone else. We're already way behind. So it's kind of a big picture. I won't get into all the details of it, but everything is so connected that I think it's really imperative that we think about financially doing a financial assessment or an economic assessment of the future of Clackamas County. You know, whether it's TriMet saying justifiably, maybe they're totally correct, that you're not generating that much employee taxes. So if you distribute the money based on how much money employment taxes you have, you don't get much transit. HB 2017 gave us employee taxes. Well, that's been flipped around to where it was supposed to be based on where the employee lived, but due to a ruling at the state level, now that was switched to where the employer is. So another loss for Clackamas County, essentially. So a very complex question, really getting to where are we headed as a county, big picture, not in the detailed sense, and what's going to incentivize businesses to stay here or move here if we don't have much in the way of the pipeline of employment land opportunities. Talked to a business that decided that they're probably going to be looking outside of Oregon to move. That was unfortunate. Can't disclose who that's going to be. But the question came is that they suffered so much now that they really have to step back and say, you know, where should they invest for their future, and availability of land around them to grow into is something that they're going to be factoring in. So gets back to the old saying is that we know how to grow them in Clackamas County. We just don't know how to keep them. You know, we're an incubator county. So I don't know if there's an appetite for that, but it seems to me that with all these things being factored on employee taxes like transportation, that we got to take a look at this and figure out how we're going to come out of this and where we're trending.
Absolutely, appreciate that input. I think it's critical information to consider. Certainly.
So what was the question? It was about Happy Valley.
The first question I had was employment. Are we working with Happy Valley for employment lands?
John?
Yeah, good morning, Chair Bernard and Commissioners. John Lagarza, Economic Development, Business Community Services. Yes, Commissioner Savis, we have been working with Happy Valley as they look at the Rock Creek area, which you're very familiar with. Actually, they just completed doing a study here in the last couple of months with the Metro Fund dollars. And again, realizing it is a large investment as far as infrastructure in the area. The good news is Happy Valley, as you're probably aware of, is exploring an urban renewal area for that. So that could be a means, as we always run into the challenge of funding this infrastructure in these geographical challenged areas. But this could be a way to help fund the Rock Creek employment area. So we have been keeping a conversation with them, working with them, and hope to see them move forward with that urban renewal area to be able to fund some of that infrastructure there, because it is a challenge for these employment areas.
Yeah, is it possible maybe in the future when it works out, they come back with a county-wide employment lands kind of update of what we have in the pipeline and what we've sold? You know, we've done pretty well in selling some of the things on, forgot what that road is, where we had a lot of properties.
Sunnyside.
What's that, Jim?
I said Sunnyside.
No, the one where alongside the Clackamas River, where we built that area.
The Chowsa, the industrial park area.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But anyhow, I'll stop there.
So I just wanted to mention that. So I live near Canby Industrial Area. They're doing very well in Canby. They're just building like crazy there. And then the Columbia Distribution Center, which has been done for a while but empty, is starting to fill up too. So I'm just really impressed with the Canby Industrial Area, what they've been able to do. I mean, there must be 3 or 4 buildings being built right now. It won't be long, that site will be filled up. Ken?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let's keep in mind that the sooner that we get the Land Bank Authority up and running, the sooner we'll have certain properties that are available for cleanup, available for jobs. That's not going to answer all of the job questions that Commissioner Savas has raised, but it's certainly a contributing factor. So as aggressively as we can pursue that, I certainly would be in support. I do have a question. I don't know that you have an answer today, but I know that you were going to be working on the C2P2 project, and I was wondering if you had any information on that.
No, I will have to get an update. Cindy, if Cindy's out there, Christina, I'm not sure if she has one. I know that we have a conversation going on with commission staff on that, although I don't have current update information right now.
That's fine. When you get something, it'll be appreciated.
BCS is not the lead on this, Ken. It's actually Tracy in our office.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Gary. Yeah.
If there's nothing else on this, any other questions? Gary, is there another issue before lunch?
All that's left is commissioner communications. So either we could do that now or we can do that this afternoon.
I'd rather do that this afternoon. I just want to bring up one issue too. Okay. Thank you, Sarah and Laura and John. We had a request to send out an information piece for the children's levy. We had not budgeted for this, and it could be somewhere around the 35,000 range. And frankly, I don't think there's enough time to do this. It would have to be written, and then the Secretary of State's office would have to approve it. And so I'm suggesting that since we haven't budgeted for this, that we decline spending the money on a mailer that may arrive too late to be an issue. So any comments or questions?
Yeah, my only comment, and I know that Paul has been engaged with me on this with the Yes for Clackamas Kids Committee and has been working on fundraising. I welcome my other commissioners to join us so that we can help Yes for Clackamas Kids raise the money for the campaign to get the message out. So, Chair Bernard, I'm happy to set up a fundraising time with you to get on the phone and call some people. But that's my only comment.
Paul?
Yeah, I did inquire, and staff even found some information even this morning as to when were the last times that we had done something like this. And so the update is, I think the last one was the NCPRD measure when we tried to go out and put that on the ballot for dissolving and reforming with the higher tax rate. We did an information flyer then. Gary, the other one was a sheriff's levy. I think we did one back in 2011.
2011, yes.
2011. So, but so we have done it and done it successfully. But we also had the one blip prior to my being a commissioner back, Gary, where you got yourself in hot water as PGA director. But if we can't do it, we can't do it. But yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate, but you guys have a better idea of our capacity to do that.
Well, it was a quick effort to put it on the ballot. And frankly, I think the request to fund this mailer is a little late. had it been a month ago, it might have given us time to go to the Secretary of State. But if the Secretary of State kicks it back, I just don't know that we can make it. I mean, the ballots go out in 3 weeks. So that's kind of tight.
Yeah, and I think the lesson we learned while in 2011, Gary, was, or 2010, or whenever it was, 2010, I think was we did that ballot, or when Lynn Peterson was the chair. The lesson we learned there that the Secretary can say, yeah, cursory review looks great, go ahead and do it, and then a complaint gets filed, and then we got burned, and we were found for an ethics violation for advocacy. So it's I wouldn't want to rush the Secretary of State at this point in time.
All right, and so shall we do the commissioner communication after?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I guess that answers it. We'll see you at 1:30. Thank you.